Okay, folks, so we want to use as much time as we have here and really maximize our opportunity for CCC members to meet and members of the public to make comments. So at 6:30, we're going to go and get started. If you're a member of the public, we welcome you to come in. We have some chairs here closer to the front of the room that might help you see a little better. CCC members, if you're here, please come join us at the table. So just a quick introduction. Hello, my name is Toby Berkman. I'm a facilitator from the Consensus Building Institute. My role here is essentially to help manage the meeting on behalf of the group. So again, welcome everyone. If you're looking for them, there are restrooms out in the hall towards the left, okay, just down the hallway there. We have a lot that folks want to talk about today in the agenda, so I really just want to go ahead and get started. So welcome to all our CCC members. You all have name placards to see who is here. We'll begin, as we typically do, with just a couple of ground rules, setting the stage for the meeting. Before we do that, though, I do just want to quickly introduce my colleague, Illustrious, who has joined CBI, is a new associate helping us with this project. Brandon has moved on to go to law school, so we're very excited for him, but obviously bittersweet. We miss his fantastic support. So a lot of gratitude from us to Brandon. With that, we are going to go ahead and get started here. So just quickly, I'm going to go through these as is our process, but we're going to try to get to the substance as quickly as we can. You can see the purposes of the CCC on the screen there. It serves as a vehicle for community involvement and implementation of the settlement agreement between GE Pittsfield and the government, to be a mechanism to ensure that all parties to the negotiated agreement are able to honor their commitment to listen to learn from, and incorporate the ideas and concerns of the community to the greatest extent possible, to enable representatives of diverse interests in the region to communicate with each other and provide community input.
Point of process.
Is this being Zoomed? Is this a hybrid meeting?
Thank you. Yes, this is a hybrid meeting. We have people joining from online. Okay, Brandon, do we have any CCC members that have joined online?
Yeah, we have Benjamin Guidi.
Okay, Benjamin Guidi and?
Just him.
Okay, just him. Thank you. Appreciate that. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. We also have members of the public joining online. This is a webinar, and we'll have an opportunity for public question and answer later in the meeting. So final bullet here, purpose of the CCC, to enable representatives of diverse interests in the region to communicate with each other and provide community input and structured feedback to GE and the government. We see here some meeting procedures. CCC is not a negotiating forum. Community input and information exchange is the focus. These meetings are open to the public and to the press. We're very pleased to see members of the public here today, both online and in person. The meeting will be facilitated. Meeting highlights, so a summary will be drafted by the facilitator. This is a summary, not minutes, and posted on the website for the remediation project. And the red line of our draft to EPA is always goes forward to the group so they can see changes or edits that were made from the initial draft. And finally, the meeting is being recorded. Meeting notes with an attendance list will be generated. Please note that the recording and notes may include personal information, name, home address, other personal information if provided. And the notes and recording may be publicly disclosed. So just everyone, if you do not want any of your information, right, disclosed, don't provide it. Okay, you're not required to do that, but this is a public meeting. Okay, quickly, roles and responsibilities. Members expected to strive to attend all meetings or send an alternate, bring concerns and information from outside constituencies, accept that each constituency is one segment of a larger community and all views are important, maintain and act with respect, defined as treating every individual, including those you disagree with, in a way that gives them the benefit of the doubt, does not start with the presumption of negative motives, avoids accusations, and is consistent with how you want to be treated. Okay, with that by way of background, briefly, the agenda today, we're going to hear from EPA, a quick update on some documents. We're going to have space for the tag update, and then the rest of the body of the session is going to be CCC open discussion. So this is a time for CCC members to discuss issues that you want to discuss. We took a poll and gathered some input on topics that people were interested in. So when we start that session, we can go through those and see where there is the most interest and try to focus our time on those issues. So without further ado, I think unless there's questions or concerns about the agenda for now, I'm going to turn it over to our colleagues from EPA. Sure, go ahead, Josh.
I have a question or a concern about the agenda,
Okay, please.
inasmuch as this is not a group process as it once was, and I don't agree with most of the agenda, and there's no opportunity any longer to engage with either you, Attorney Berkman, or with EPA. Arbitrary decisions have been made around the agenda and many other things. So this is not the agenda that I can agree with, because it is essentially not consensed, and it's not how we want it done.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. So I think this is up to you all, right? So we have, you know, the topics that were submitted, and the top one here is the CCC meeting structure and process that I know a lot of people want to talk about. So if you all want to have that conversation right now, we can. If you want to hear EPA slides and the tag update and then talk about that, that's also fine. I think, you know, we have that CCC discussion time where any topic, including this one, can be discussed, right? So I think this is up to the group. Do you want to hear from EPA now and the tag update, and then address those issues in the open session? It's a question to Judy and others. What would you prefer?
My preference is to go back and start this process again in a democratic fashion, like we used to, as best possible. We understand that there are constraints on EPA, and that you, although you are the facilitator for the CCC, you're not really the facilitator for the CCC members. You are an agent, you are a subcontractor under EPA. So we kind of have no one except ourselves to speak our concerns and to speak our questions. So on the spot now, telling us that we now have total control over the agenda and we get to set what goes first and what goes next. You know, I say you go ahead and
Okay.
you choose, because I don't want to participate in this agenda because it is not a consensed agenda that involved all of us.
Yeah. So here's what I would suggest, and if it's okay with the group, let's hear from EPA. Let's do the tag grant. Those are kind of typical things that have been on the agenda forever, right? Then let's talk about how you want to decide what to talk about during the discussion portion, during the kind of CCC member open session. And that will be up to you. But I think there's also a bigger question, Judy, which you're raising is, you know, the process of sending out a survey for topics, sharing that with folks, and then bringing those to the meeting and having a conversation about what people want to talk about. Maybe that's not how you want to spend, how you think the best way to organize and get the decision on what to talk about is, and that's fine. We can also talk about that, right? So maybe we'll hear from Josh now, do the tag update, and then that open session. I mean, I for one, want to make that work for what you guys want to talk about as much as I can, that portion of this agenda. So maybe we'll hear from Josh now, and then when we get there, we can talk more about it. Okay? That's acceptable to the group? Yeah, okay. All right.
You want to move on? Start banging on the table? We're gonna let him go. Yeah.
Let them go,
Okay.
then we'll bang.
All right.
We'll get our voices out.
Good evening. My name is Josh Fontaine, one of the project managers for the site. I'm going to give a very quick, hopefully less than 5-minute update of documents that are upcoming and some other important information. So first thing, currently there's no formal public input for documents open right now. There are going to be some documents that are upcoming that will be available for public input. The challenge is live. That is active and accepting solutions until the 12th of November. The link on this slide, which these slides will be available to the public, will give you direct access to the Wazoku dashboard. And that dashboard will show how many solutions have been submitted, how many registered interest parties there are. As of this morning, we had 15 solutions submitted at this time, and a potential 52 interested parties that want to submit for that challenge. In regards to the challenge, just a reminder to the email that Ashton sent out quite a bit ago, the EPA case team is not part of the judging panel for those solutions. That is a federal and private joint judging panel. We don't have any information on who has submitted, what has submitted, and we're just waiting as eager as everybody else to find out where that goes going forward. So this provides the update of documents that are going to be coming through January. Charlie, I got 3 minutes.
Okay, I just had a question about the
Sure.
challenge, so thought we could ask while we're there. Okay.
Big documents that I know this group would be interested in is next week, the revised transportation and disposal plan will be submitted for EPA review and approval. That document will be open for public input. And then also we understand there's a lot of interest in the hydraulic transport of contaminated sediments from Woods Pond. That conceptual remedial design plan will be coming in at the end of the month, which should include some of those details, in addition to the transportation plan has been requested to provide some of those details as well. Other big dates, the revised UDF final design and O&M plan is coming December 20th. And sorry I missed the revised quality of life and project operations plan due in November. As always, please submit any public input to the R1 Housatonic at EPA.gov website. This slide was added as a reference. I'm not going to go over it. We received some input from the survey that we would, the activities EPA has been conducting over a while be available. That's on this slide for people's reference when they take a look at the slide in the future. And then finally, upcoming public meetings, we have our airborne PCBs and PCB air sampling at the GE Pittsfield Housatonic River Superfund site tomorrow at the Lee Middle and High School Auditorium from 6:30 to 8:30. And then we have tentatively planned public meetings on the revised on-site transportation and disposal plan for the November-December timeframe. In addition, in January, February, we plan on having a conceptual remedial design plan for Reach 6, which includes Woods Pond. Okay.
Thanks, Josh. So next on the agenda is the tag update.
So we don't ask any questions about that yet. We have to wait until all the discussion.
I mean, I would say at this point, you know, if you want to do the tag update now, you can. This is kind of to the CCC, really. Yeah, or do the questions after. Charlie, you want to go ahead? I'll bring you the mic here. So.
I think I'm fine. I'll be loud.
Okay, be loud.
Okay.
Just for folks online, make sure they can hear.
So I'm doing the tag update since Tim Gray is not available here tonight.
Can we use the mic?
Just for the folks who are watching. Yeah.
Yes, Charlie Cianfarini doing the tag update for Tim Gray, who is not here tonight. Dr. Mark Hermanson is no longer under contract with HRI as our tag advisor. His desire to spend greater professional time in Europe and Scandinavia for research and academia made financial transactions complex. HRI hopes to have a new advisor on board soon, and we have been in communication with the Region 1 tag administrator as we move forward with the process.
Thanks, Charlie. Okay, so we can now move into the CCC open session. So this is, you guys can spend this time how you want. So I had suggested some potential structure to this, but that is up to you. So if you want to just do some questions to EPA about the presentations right now, we can. I did, yes.
I'm sorry, can
Yeah.
I just ask a logistics
Yeah.
question? Can you just make sure that the online people can hear?
Yeah.
There seems to be some question about whether they can.
I think it's not working. There's a speaker over there that can talk.
Okay.
All right, well, I mean, if they use this speaker, can you?
This is not mine.
All right, so
Nobody has.
no one is, if you're online and you can't hear, whether or not you're, a CCC member or not, like members of the public, you can raise your hand, let us know, okay? We haven't seen that. And I don't know how to make sure that the audio is coming out, but if someone who knows how to do that could double check that when we do in fact want to hear from people online, we can. All right, so can I just check, did folks have a chance to see the kind of email exchange on topics of interest that was sent around? Okay, you did not. Okay, so yeah, no. So essentially, we sent out a poll to CCC members, and this was an idea that came out of conversations that we had with you all, a way to make you own this portion of the agenda at least, right? So we did that poll, we got input on topics, sent them around. There's a handout with those. There's a list up here, and one thought that I had was if you want to, we can take a quick straw poll on these and see where there's the most interest and focus on that. If that doesn't work, we don't have to do it that way. Yeah, Charlie. Yeah.
I'm going to apply to be the coordinator for this because I don't think Toby does a very good job. No offense, Toby. You should go around and let everybody at the table introduce themselves for the people at home who are watching on the Zoom, so they know who everybody is, who the people at the CCC members are, and then you don't have to introduce everybody in the audience, but it would be a good idea for the EPA and everybody to introduce themselves. That's my suggestion.
Yeah. Would you like to start us off?
Charlie Cianfrini, Citizens for PCB Removal. And I am a CCC member. I am not a government authority.
Judy Herkimer, the Housatonic Environmental Action League. We're based in Cornwall Bridge, Connecticut, although we're a tri-state 501c3.
Jack Anstein, replacing member of Lynn Fowler for the Housatonic River Commission.
Valerie Anderson, I live in Pittsfield, and I'm a member of the Housatonic Clean River Coalition and a member of the CCC.
Julia Thomas, and I'm not exactly sure why I'm here, but I was a founding member of a group called the Clean Berkshire Collective that started a year ago and has sort of become a little bit defunct, but I'm also a member of the PCB Advisory Committee and kind of trying to engage my generation and a broader audience around this issue.
I'll bring it around. Josh, you want to introduce yourself again? Or?
Yeah. Josh Fontaine, EPA project manager for the site.
Dean Taliaferro, EPA project manager for the site.
John Kilborn, I'm the EPA site attorney.
Hi, I'm Courtney Carroll. I'm a human health risk assessor with EPA.
Hi, I'm Becky Cushing-Gopp. I'm the regional director for Mass Audubon.
Thank you. Group, would you be interested in hearing what we heard people wanted to talk about, the topics? Would it be helpful for me to do a run through of those?
Can I just ask a quick question about the challenge?
Sure. Okay, that's okay with the group. Go ahead.
Okay. And I just, because that challenge seemed like a very short duration, it sounds like you got a lot of responses, which is great. But is there any possibility that it could get extended as you look at it? I mean, it seemed like it was a very, it's going to be to here, to here, to here, and then it's over. So again, the question is, could it be extended if things really look promising?
Thanks, Charlie. So the way the challenges are run for EPA, it's not regionally based. It's based off of a national contract with this company called Wizoku. Wizoku has been the ones that have been proposing the timelines. They're the ones that have several thousands of people already involved with their organization, or not their organization, but part of their platform. So when the challenges get announced, it gets sent to everybody on their platform. There is the possibility that they could get requested that it be extended. That's not in our decision, our hands. It's all based off of their program right now of pushing things forward. So they're the ones that told us that the length of time that was set for it was appropriate. If we need to discuss that based off of what Wazoku tells us, we can do that.
And you can repeat this question so that the cost factor that was set of $100 per ton, was that something that Wazoku did? Was that something that EPA requested?
EPA definitely weighed in on the criteria. The $100 a ton is a good target. If, for example, if someone comes up with a solution that's $10,000 a ton, that's probably not very useful for this site or any other site. It really would be more practical to be implemented in the long run here or anywhere else if it's less than an off-site disposal cost. So we think that EPA came up with that criteria.
I'll add one more thing. This is only the first phase, so this is the conceptual plan. This will be shared with the judges, they will review it, and then based on any awards, there's the potential for a phase 2, which would be actually implementing that work either in a lab setting or potentially in the field. It depends on what we see for proposals. And again, the case team isn't the one that are judging this, it's all external factor from the case team. We have no hand in what's submitted, we don't see the proposals, that's all done by the judging team.
Is Annie Laughlin the lead, or are you the lead on the challenge?
We don't have a lead. We work as a team. The GE team is the lead.
Because historically, when this first came up, Annie was the one who introduced it, spoke to it, and...
That's correct. She was the spokesman at that time. We have different people, like Josh spoke today. We're all part of the same team. And depending on, the questions, we'll decide the answers. So there is no official lead on the challenge.
Any other questions on this? Yeah, Becky?
Not about the challenge, it was about the presentation. So.
Okay, that's fine. I think
Okay.
we're doing that, so. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for putting that together, and I really like the slide that does have the activities that have happened recently. And I was, I don't have it to pull up in front of me, but I don't think that they're hyperlinked, and so I was kind of curious if in the future, if there are like documents or things that could be hyperlinked in that, then that could be a useful reference. Yeah, so I realize that not all of them might have that, but some of them might have things that they reference. And so if there was the ability to hyperlink to documents related to them, that could be a useful reference for us. So just a thought.
Well, pass the mic. So we appreciate that feedback. It's definitely something we consider for future meetings. The GE website that EPA has, we've been continually upgrading that to make it more user-friendly. So on the front page, it does have all the different areas of, for instance, the rest of river. So there's a section under rest of river, for instance, that has dams or dam inspections and related documents. That will have all the most recent and current documents there, so that there's a lot of documents to try to include on one PowerPoint slide. But this was a quick addition to the presentation this morning based off of review of the surveys that we got. But
Yeah,
yes, we can
so-
definitely take that into consideration.
Yeah, if you can add any way to make it easier to connect to the more information is much appreciated, because there are so many documents.
No, totally understand.
All right. So maybe I'll just share what we heard in terms of topics that people were interested in, and I think we can go with where the group wants to go. But maybe just helpful to report back to you some of what came out of that. So we asked you in advance, and we named that there was an interest in talking about CCC meeting processes, CCC agenda development, the reorganization and restructuring of the CCC that has involved fewer meetings that EPA announced. And so we polled people on how interested they were in talking about those topics, and the average was 3.9 out of 5, right? So fairly high, right, on that. We also shared that CBI had done some interviews with CCC members, and we shared a slide deck summarizing those interviews. We also presented that slide deck to a smaller group of CCC members who were interested in hearing about it. So I could provide the same presentation to this group if there's interest that I provided to that smaller group that was also provided to EPA. I also had a conversation with a representative from GE about their lack of participation in the CCC. If there's interest, I'm happy to report out on what I learned and heard in that conversation and their response. We also heard, and I'll note there is a, you want to hear it, Charlie? Yeah. Yes, all right. We'll do, why don't we go ahead and do that, and then we can move on to the other topics, or potential topics. So, all right, I spoke with Andy Silfer from GE. He's started at GE in '96. He's been doing environmental consulting for a long time. In any case, he basically said that GE, I asked him about rejoining CCC meetings. Now that the remedy has been finalized, I shared with him the frustration among CCC members that GE is not there, the strong desire that GE come, the fact that CCC members have articulated their understanding that GE is required to come to CCC meetings. And he said, he appreciated the chance to talk with me. He was very polite, but he was pretty clear that GE is not interested in rejoining CCC meetings at this time. He expressed that they are focusing their community engagement on sharing information related to implementing the remedy, and they anticipate, as the remedy will start implementation within a year or so, that they'll be ramping up outreach to specific communities that are impacted. They see the CCC as a forum that has been focused on opposing the remedy and airing complaints about issues that have already been resolved, so they want to focus their community engagement elsewhere. He said that GE understands the required to do community outreach, and they see that as important moving forward, especially in the coming years as they move into implementation, and there will be important information to share with local communities about work that will be happening. He said, in the future, and I kind of pushed him on this, if it seems like the CCC has become what they see as a productive forum, that for the kind of engagement that they see as productive, right, then they would reconsider whether coming back to CCC meetings. So that's where I got him to end. That this is not that he would potentially reconsider if he sees what changes they want to see, they say they want in the forum. Yeah, question.
John Kilborn, attorney. I'd like you to weigh in on whether GE is required to attend the CCC meeting, since in the consent decree it says settling defendant, who is GE. This is on page 394 of the consent decree. Settling defendant shall cooperate, provide information to the public, including the Citizens Coordinating Council, and settling defendant, GE shall participate in the preparation of such information for dissemination to the public, including Citizens Coordinating Council, and in public meetings. So can you, as one of the parties to the consent decree, file a motion to have them attend the CCC meetings or be in contempt?
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Valerie. I'm aware of that provision. I've looked at it. This has come up before, the question of GE's participation. And I don't think the language in that section is strong enough to file such a motion to force GE to come to meetings. The language speaks more to them providing information and to participating in community involvement activities or supporting it off the top of my head. But when I looked at it a while ago, I didn't think it was strong enough to file a motion to force them to come or to try to pursue stipulated penalties, which, before we go to court, we would do stipulated penalties, but that's my read of the consent decree.
Thank you. But as a litigator, I would bring this and push it and use the argument of past practice and that they have been to many, many meetings, and it was the expectation that they be here, and that they unilaterally, without discussion or approval, stopped coming here. So I would, I think you could file it and be aggressive about it, and I would appreciate it if you would. Thank you.
Would you accept a petition from the people requesting that you do what Valerie has outlined, even if it's an exercise, and just to get GE on the record to demonstrate that they will refuse to participate, that they will refuse your motion?
Judy, I'm not going to say that you have obviously the full ability to make requests of EPA and to express your opinion, or your reading of the language. As I said, I don't have a different answer other than just what I said in terms of my reading of that provision that Valerie cited. The other thing is that to bring enforcement, we have to turn to the Department of Justice to bring actions in court. So that's another issue. So I guess if you feel like you'd like to file a petition, we will consider it. But I've told you my opinion of the reading of the consent decree. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're just bringing forward what people are coming to us with also, and they have long wanted GE at the table.
Right.
So it's our responsibility to bring it forward to you.
Okay, understood.
Another point is that in the lawsuit that the decision, what's the board that made the decision?
Environmental Appeals Board.
Environmental Appeals Board, thank you. Made it a point to compliment the citizens of this site in the activism and strength they had for years. So I feel that we should take a more aggressive position on this so that our voice can be heard, like the Environmental Appeals Board said and complimented us. And maybe we should write a letter to the Department of Justice asking
Indeed.
them to reopen. Thank you.
Any response from you guys? Okay. Other comments from CCC members on this issue? What would you like to talk about next? I can continue going through this list if you like and sharing what people brought to the table before the meeting. Or if there's a burning topic you want to talk about now, we can go there. Charlie. Yep.
I apologize to anyone who's in the audience here or who's at home who may be listening to the Zoom and feel like I'm trying to manipulate this by asking a lot of questions, but I feel that that's what we're here for. One of the things, not only am I dismayed that GE isn't here, tonight I'm dismayed that Mass DEP is not here, City of Pittsfield is not here, there's no representation, as far as I know, from any of the local cities or towns that are involved in any, who should be on the CCC, who should be sitting at the table. So again, that's one of the things. That's a comment. Now, the thing that I really want to talk about is, are we at 2 CCC meetings per year? There is no way to change that. That's in stone, that we can't have four meetings a year, so that we can have our voices heard publicly at least 4 times a year. And that was a decision by EPA.
So real quick, Charlie, Ben Guidey is online from Mass DEP, so he's not here in person, but he is listening into the conversation.
In the past, we've had, a screen where we could see who was up there.
Yeah, well, we struggled with getting that to work this time. We'll make sure
Okay.
that it's
So it's
that
hard,
way.
it's hard to
Yeah.
know who's really,
Right.
who's there, so.
If you would like, I can take this down and put up the Zoom so you can see everybody that's on there. But in regards to the 2 meetings per year, I understand the frustration with that. One of the major comments we've received from both you and Judy is to make sure the public is getting actively involved and they have the opportunity to approach EPA, GE, Mass DEP, any of the other agencies. We aren't able to do that in a CCC meeting because if we're doing a CCC meeting, it is intended for the CCC members and EPA to share information back and forth and share that with their constituents. And in a lot of the meetings, we often get the feedback that EPA is taking too much of the time to present. We have to share the information of work that's ongoing right now. Like that's a must. We have to share that information. And that's why tomorrow, to the request of the CCC, we are having this airborne PCB meeting. That was a direct request by Valerie at our last meeting. So we are taking those recommendations into play. The 2 times per year, we would like feedback on what other larger public meetings the CCC would like to see. Because that's where we're going to be able to reach the largest number of people as compared to our previous meetings. So for instance, we already know that the revised transportation and disposal plan is a big topic that people want to see and hear. And we're hoping that we'll be able to have GE come back again and either present with us or present on this revised plan. When it comes to the other meetings, they're going to have to take precedent because we have to get the message out there. And we want guidance from the CCC to be able to find out what other materials, whether it be meetings, information, fact sheets, memos to the CCC that you can share with your constituents so we can widely share that to a large audience at the public at large.
Well, the 2 aren't mutually exclusive. I mean, you can do the wider community meetings, and 4 CCC meetings isn't all that much. And like Charlie said in his very well presented response to this that he sent at the end of August, I mean, it's a chance where we can have input from people like DEP. They're on the Zoom, but they're not on the table. We can, ask questions. We can have people from the cities, the towns here, and ask questions. So it's not mutually exclusive. Why can't you have 4 meetings and this other community input?
So we understand that the community would like all of the different agencies to be available for these meetings, and we are working for these larger public meetings to have those same representation at those meetings. So for instance, tomorrow we have the Massachusetts Department of Health coming for the airborne PCB discussion. So they will be there to help answer questions for the public on that. We're going to continue inviting everybody that we can. We share the invitation with Mass DEP, we share it with CTD. That is somewhat limiting because not everybody has the same schedule, and unfortunately EPA has to get a date on the books because it's not easy, especially with the school year. And I can tell you about tonight and tomorrow's meeting, it was very challenging to find a date. We wanted to have the airborne PCB meeting in September, but unfortunately with availability, we had to bump it to now.
More comments on this topic?
One last-
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Again, one last thing. In the event that a topic comes up that could be ultra critical, can we actually ask for another meeting to be held instead of just, more of an emergency type meeting where we could get together? And instead of just saying, oh no, you have to wait 6 months, an important topic has come up that we really want to discuss in person here with EPA for the people that we represent. Can we ask for basically an emergency meeting or an interim meeting or whatever you might want to call it?
Short answer, yes. We've been very communicative with you in the past. We're open to hearing requests. We are also working with the different municipalities at their requests to either join their meetings or hold meetings based on their topics. That being said, the beauty of where we're at in the process, everything is pretty prescriptive going forward with the remedial design and then actually implementing that work. So the document schedule will be more consistent moving now as we progress. And the hope would be that there isn't an emergency case where we have to have something like that. But if there were a scenario where that would happen, there would likely be something the agency would throw together as quick as we can.
I don't know.
Probably might go to Judy first, haven't heard from her in a bit.
Because this is
Yeah.
what we usually do.
Yeah.
Is that what you want? Or do you want us to raise our hand?
Honestly, I think
Or
we're a
say-
small enough group right now that if you raise your hand, I can see. If you want to do something more formal, that's fine, right? But I see you, Judy, and here's the mic.
So just even the layout of the room is not what we're accustomed to. We were very particular and we all worked together to make certain that there would never be a wall between us and the people who have taken time out of their already long day to come. And that after every agenda item, that the people who came, the citizens, the residents who are being negatively affected by this highly contaminated watershed, that they would have an opportunity to see, to speak, and to ask questions. And we could have 100 people in the audience at the Lenox Library at some meetings. And they were respected, and there was always time allotted at the end for them for citizens, residents, whomever, attendees to speak. And sometimes we went overtime to accommodate that. And this radical change that's going on here, of course, has had no involvement with any of us. And another most distressing thing that's happened is it appears that the Connecticut subcommittee of the CCC no longer exists. Connecticut has more miles of river than Massachusetts. They have the Army Corps of Engineers says that there's at least 50% remaining in Connecticut of the product that was entered into the system. So what's happened to the Connecticut subcommittee? And then I went to the library in Falls Village. I had just spoken with the library a couple of weeks before Miss Ashland and EPA were apparently in the process of closing the last hard copy repository in the entire watershed. That was set up between HEAL and EPA with the predecessor to Miss Ashland. And I've spoken with the librarian since. She said that she felt blindsided by EPA. So are you going to reinstate that very important hard copy repository that services elders, that services people who where English is not their first language, and they patronize that library and that repository? I patronize that library and that repository. Why did you do that without even the courtesy of coming to HEAL and saying that we're about to amputate the last hard copy repository that exists in the entire watershed? And why am I hearing from the librarian who says that EPA blindsided me? Of course we support this hard copy repository. And now it's moved upstairs, up a flight of stairs. There's no, excuse me, there's no elevator. So the couple of elders that use that repository can't even get up there. Who made this decision, and why did you not include us?
Toby, I'll take it.
There were some questions or comments there on the meeting structure, so I'll address those briefly, then Josh, I'll give it to you on the hard copies issue. So I just want to...
I think he wants the microphone.
I'll respond.
Go ahead, that's fine.
So to start, Judy, I'm sorry that we are receiving conflicting information from the library. Ashlyn and I both had a discussion with the director of the library, and she told us, or we had the discussion of how she wanted to manage hard copies going forward, because there is a large volume of documents, and she discussed with us the different options, and she's also one that suggested that we make it electronic, where they on their website they'll put a link to our repository.
She
So
told
we-
me that
we
you
will
suggested that, and that she didn't know which end was up, and she felt pressured to accept the
It's
electronic.
possible
Why
we're not
didn't
talking
you
to the same
come to
person.
me? Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you extend the courtesy to an NGO at this site that has been at this site for over 30 years?
We haven't closed anything. There was
That
no
wasn't my
movement.
question.
They-
That wasn't my question. Why did you choose to leave me out
'Cause-
of this very critically important communication?
We went straight to the library to make the discussion with the library. She informed us that in her tenure, only one person had looked at any of the hard copies. We had the discussion. We will follow up with her again and come up with a better plan. As for the location of where the documents are, we have made no direction as to where those documents are kept in the library.
I appreciate that, but after you went in there and did whatever you did, I wasn't there, I can't speak to it. I can only speak to what she said to me. In that, so if it's going electronic, why have it downstairs on the main floor? It's a very busy library. And she told me, again, that it's very difficult to ascertain who reaches out and who actually accesses resource material, because it doesn't get checked out. So her eyes can't be on the library at every minute of every day. She doesn't know for certain. She knows, people like me who come in, and remember, the attic in that library contains the entire historical hard copy repository. It's the only one left in the watershed. And EPA agreed to that we would do that together. And there was an EPA representative there, Miss Ashlyn's predecessor, who helped us move it all up into that attic. And there it is, and it's been used a couple of times, and I anticipate it will be used again. You should have come to me.
Hi. So there are.
Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Ashlyn Brooks. You guys have probably seen my emails. I'm the community involvement coordinator for the site. So there isn't, for the hard copies, there won't be 0 hard copies. So we do send larger documents that pertain to the site, I guess heavy hitter documents, to the Lenox, Lee, Pittsfield, and the Hunt Library. So there's not an abandonment of hard copies. There will be hard copies for the heavy hitter items or hot ticket items, such as like the UDF plan or the transportation plan, quality of life plan. So there won't ever be 0 copies, but we are taking the consideration of the librarian that we spoke with, and she said that it was too much for her to archive all of the hard copies that she receives. As you can tell, there's many, and that she would like to, moving forward, she would like to get the heavy ticket items that the community had requested. And that's not just in the Hunt Library, that's in the Lee Library, Pittsfield Library, and the Lenox Library as well. So there's 4 in total that would receive hard copy documents.
I sent you an email months ago asking you to articulate for me which documents are being sent to the Hunt Library and how do you choose them, and can we have some input into that, into which, and you never respond to me. You're not responding to a lot of people who are writing to you from stakeholder groups. So, you know.
I do have a comment on that.
Okay, I also see some other hands, so let's do that, and I'd like to also make sure we get other members.
So we did address your question in a larger email, but it was directed to the entire CCC. And so that did include the library locations and the documents that were sent to that library. But it just wasn't directed to you personally, but it did include your question that you did send me.
But I wrote you a personal email. I wrote you a personal email from Heal to you, articulating it was quite articulated exactly what I wanted. You never even notified me that my questions in my personal email from Heal to you was going to be amalgamated into a larger document. You never said that to me.
I believe I did with Valerie and yourself and Charlie. The questions that we received, we did say we were going to put in a larger document to which everybody in the CCC could see, so everybody could see your question and our response.
And we have had no knowledge that these documents are going to the libraries, that they were going to the municipalities, that they were going to the offices of the select board or whatever the chief elected official is.
Okay, I think I want to hear from Dean. I also think there's a number of other issues that CCC members have brought to the table. So after this, I'd like to suggest we move on.
Yeah, I'm just going to address, I think, Ashlyn, the documents in Pittsfield go to Pittsfield City Hall. The librarian, the Berkshire Athenaeum librarian, just put to me personally and you, does not want any more hard copies. Lenox and Lee, Lenox goes to the Lenox Library. Lee, I believe, goes to the Lee town manager.
I also just want to make sure for clarity folks understand there will be public question and answer at 7:45. If the CCC wants to go to that earlier for any reason, feel free to suggest it to the group.
Yes, on the issue of frequency of the CCC meetings, this summer, there was a lot of, there was press and activity about the cleanup or the demolition of some GE buildings, 12 and 14, and cleanup of the PETA site and air monitoring, such that the demolition had to be stopped for a period of time. This made a groundswell of younger people on social media in Pittsfield getting involved in this issue, which is really great. Caitlin, I know, has emailed many of you with questions about this, and it's really, really great. So stuff like that shows that we need a more frequent forum that we can discuss these burgeoning issues that come up. For example, I had suggested, talking about air monitoring, which is going to be discussed tomorrow, but also about cleanup of areas that are not part of the consent decree, like Goodrich Pond and Pittsfield, and other issues. And so that might be under the purview of Mass DEP, because it's not under the consent decree. We don't know. But to have a forum where we can discuss that, like at the CCC, is really important. And to have these fewer meetings really stifles that discussion. For example, I know Caitlin couldn't be here tonight. She might be on the.
Oh, I'm here, Valerie.
Oh, you were? Oh, good. Thank God. Okay, good. So she's here, a young person. We should embrace these young people who use social media and are asking really, really good questions. And the CCC is a chance for people like Caitlin to come and meet people from EPA and Mass DEP, who's on computer, and other officials. And so we should have more of these meetings, not less.
Julie, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, well, okay, thanks. I'm not exactly sure how to say, but I think, Charlie made a point that I agree with, that, the representation here, I feel personally like I wish that there are more people who, just residents from different neighborhoods that will be impacted by the cleanup. I know that, this is really just complicated history, but I guess I do feel a little bit upset about the way that people were just talking about Ashland. I think it feels a little bit disrespectful to target the administrative person, and it's just kind of makes me feel upset. So.
Becky, you want to say something?
It's not about the frequency of meetings, but it's about information and data sharing. So is that all right to switch?
I think we can move on to it. Yes.
It's related.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm hearing, absorbing a lot of, desire to have information. And so I think that the G's notification website data sharing, CCC's input on development, that was something that I had commented on. It's something that we put in our comment letters that we really hope to see when the project starts, or before the project starts. We really want an extremely transparent ability for people to plug in and see what's going on in different parts of the cleanup on different properties, and in real time get information, as real time as possible. We have a wildlife sanctuary where this is happening. The technology is there to monitor real time and to be able to go on a website and see exactly what's going on. So something I thought could be a useful topic for the CCC would be to find out from our different groups and the people that we work with, our different audiences, what would people want to see? Like, what do people want to be able to have at their fingertips to know what's going on? What are the different levels of noise or airborne particles, or to be able to click on a button in a location and know what's going on. So I just wanted to raise that as a topic that I've been thinking a lot about. It's something I want as a resident who's in the affected area to be able to easily get that information. So just raising it as a topic.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. And I'll say we did get a couple of requests for this, or suggestions around this, that maybe a potential role for the CCC could be to get some folks together, hear from constituents, and provide input on that data sharing, right? Bring something together, propose it to EPA, propose it to GE on how data is gathered, being shared on the GE website or otherwise. Yeah.
Just one more thought about that. So, because we were talking about things trying to be user-friendly earlier, and so I would love to see some iterations of that. Here's what we're thinking, and can we get some input on, like, does this make sense? Can we have some users try to see how it works for them, and then can we keep refining it until it gets to a point where it truly is user-friendly, because it feels like that transparency and information at our fingertips is going to be critical to knowing what's going on and not needing to kind of sift through or, I don't know, fact check sources. It's like, okay, it's right there.
Mm-hmm. Any reactions to Becky's comment or suggestion? Yeah,
That's good.
you like it? Is something
Yeah.
people would be interested in thinking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a, yeah, so.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what a next step is. Like, something that I imagine could be useful is for us to go back to our constituents and kind of find out what might people want to see. Like, what are the questions? I mean, there's some of them are kind of obvious, like the things we already know we're going to be measuring, right? And our conservation ecologist has offered to. He's more familiar with the systems that we have at the wildlife sanctuary. It's Tidmarsh Wildlife Sanctuary. There's actually a link. I mean, we could send this around. People could poke around and check it out. But it seems like an interim step in between meetings could be to just work with people and collect some lists of information or ideas.
So would it be helpful to have, I mean, are you suggesting some kind of coordination around this would be helpful? Like,
Yeah, I don't know, like
Mhm.
a next meeting, you know, we do some work in between meetings and we bring something to the table
Mhm,
next meeting.
mhm.
It's just, it just seems like it's a topic that could,
15 years ago, if they gave me money, I'd
agree.
So I think, could we keep the side conversation? Yeah. Sorry, Becky, go ahead. You wanted to say something?
No, that's, I don't
Okay.
have anything to add.
Do you want to say something? Yeah.
they never answered your question.
So in the next quality of life plan,
Yeah.
that revision, we're hoping will have some more details about the GE notification. I think that website might be a little bit different than what you're looking for at this time, but we're open to taking suggestions from the group and sharing that with GE if there's any way we can improve that.
Well, one thing that I think is critical about this whole air monitoring thing, and I wrote a letter to the editor, I called Mass DEP in July inquiring about the adequacy of air monitoring at the PETA and GE demolition site. And lo and behold, they sent somebody out there, to their credit, and made them douse water so there wouldn't be dust swirling around. And I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but that same day, they found a spike in the PCB levels such that they had to shut down the demolition of the GE buildings for a while until steps were taken. So what I think, talk about real time, is air monitoring. I mean, what good is air monitoring if you don't tell the residents that there's been a spike in PCBs? So we could at least close our windows in our cars when we drive by, or close the windows in our houses. Some real time like that. I mean, they notify us through Pittsfield. They call us, you know, when there's a discharge of sewage water in the Housatonic. Why can't they use that system to notify us that there's a spike in PCBs? So close your windows if you desire. That's a real-time monitoring.
They can use it.
They don't.
Right.
A couple things on that. First of all, there's no such thing as a real-time PCB air monitor. It takes 14 to 21 days to get the results. We put the results out with an email within, I think, 4 hours of getting the data. So there's no point closing your windows. First of all, there's no reason to close those windows anyway, because the levels are not an instantaneous, you know, health threat. So that's what it takes to get PCB air data. There is no magic EPA PCB monitor that just gives you a direct reading of PCBs minute by minute. So that just is not possible. As far as when we notified it, I think you can look at the email trail that I know I was with as soon as we knew about it, as soon as the data came to us, we sent it out. And we explained in detail what happened there and why it happened, and we think that showed that the air monitoring system worked. This was an air monitor that PETA set up, and we can talk about it more yesterday, so I don't want to give our presentation tonight. The air monitor that PETA set up, which was on the perimeter, and PETA, excuse me, is Pittsfield Economic Development Authority, they were removing slabs and doing site prep work on the parcel transferred to them. They put a monitor on their perimeter, which just happened to be on they had it on all their perimeters, all four sides, excuse me. One side of their parcel was a common property line with GE, and the monitor they placed was about 15 feet from GE's building demolition. So it was not exterior to GE or PETA property. All the monitors that were exterior to GE and PETA property did not exceed any of the standards. So there was no threat to the public. However, to be conservative, even though it wasn't even GE's monitor or GE's data, we told GE they had to shut down. DEP can speak for themselves, they told PETA to shut down as well, even though PETA was not having any contact with contaminated soil. That's what we did. That's how the system works. It works the way it was designed. GE did some additional engineering controls, and the work goes forward. So we think that shows it worked, the way it's supposed to.
Well, so I think there was one part of your point, correct me if I'm wrong, Valerie, was around sort of this specific air monitoring instance, but I think the broader point was, is there a way that we can get community input into how data is presented from GE or otherwise, right, to make sure that as much notice and information can be presented to people in a way that makes sense for them.
What good is air monitoring then? Why bother if you're not going to do anything about it?
Or is there an opportunity to get input on how that data is made available?
Right. Well, that at a minimum, yeah.
You want to get Jack on?
Yeah, but just a quick question for the EPA. Why does it take 21 days for them to process air quality, and why does it take so long?
That's what it takes to collect the samples, that's typically what it takes to collect the samples, run the samples, send them to the lab. Labs aren't just sitting there waiting to do nothing. That is a standard turnaround time. That's been a standard turnaround time for the last 25 years. It works fine, whether it was 14 days. I'm hearing that's not going to be good enough. What matters is the overall average concentrations that you're seeing week after week or month after month, and we can talk about this tomorrow, so I don't need to give the whole presentation tonight. There's a huge data record of the air sampling, and it shows it's fairly consistent. So there's no need to get instantaneous PCB air monitoring results for this level of contamination.
I was just, and you don't have to give me the mic back. I was just saying, I work for Berkshire Springs. We send water in every single week to all the need to be tested to make certain that our water is purified, and we get an answer on our water the next week. And I'm just curious why. I was just wondering why it takes so long. That's all. I know that science is, they made a lot of progress in science over the years. They can test things a lot quicker.
It's still slow. And it's a more complicated analysis than most likely what you're doing.
Right.
Thank you. That was really useful. And so where I started to go with that is what could go up on a website. Like, could there be, you click a button and it shows that trend, it just shows a graph, and it's like, these are the levels, and it's, going, it's not real time, but it's like, here's the pattern, because that's what is the health,
The quality of life plan, well, hopefully, because that's meant for the notification process of air monitoring and stuff like that. So we still have to wait for those details, and that plan comes out in November 22nd for Alex.
So could we as a CCC find some things that we think are really important to have in the quality of life plan and work to submit those comments together, one voice.
What do you guys think? Is that a question to the CCC?
I mean, it's if there are things that we all care about wanting people to have information and we all are requesting them, then it seems like it's a way to have a voice heard more loudly.
But Becky, as Mass Audubon, you signed off on the consent decree that is in part that contributed to Lee being the recipient of a 1.3 million cubic yard toxic PCB dump because your organization signed off on it. Do I want to join with you in submitting nice comments on, comments on whatever you're talking about as a group?
I'm not suggesting we have to all sign the same letter. I'm just saying that it could make sense to identify the common ground that we do have and things that we do want to see, and kind of take that power of the CCC back and ask for them.
Would you agree to work with us and write comments that what should be happening is that all of the contaminated sediment, no matter what level it is, should be going off-site to a TSCA level dump?
That's not an area that our organizations agree. That's not common. That's not finding the common ground. As you said, we've signed the settlement agreement. This is something that's outside. This is something yet to come, the quality of life plan. So that's what I'm commenting on.
So, I think this is actually a good discussion, right? I think that there is a question, right, that Becky is putting on the table, which is, I think, an important one, right, for the CCC to take seriously, which is that there are organizations here that have been opposed in the past and still have differences. And if there are areas where actually you are aligned, right, is there a shared interest in trying to do something unanimously on those issues to increase the power of your voice? And the answer legitimately could be no. Right? I want to say that like Judy, that's fine if you don't think that, and that's.
Thank you, Attorney Berkman.
Yeah, well, you don't need me to say it, right? But I just want to say, it's an open question, I think, for you all to think about, right? And it might be that the group wants to do something with, most of the group, and I won't say it's all the CCC, but we can try something like that. I'll just say, if there's a coordinating role, you want, way to get input from everyone, I'm happy as the facilitator to serve that and sort of send requests for information out to the group, make sure that everyone is consenting and it's okay with the way we're handling that, but I can serve that role if that's something that the group wants, and do that between meetings, right? Obviously, within limits, right? But, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm not trying to force anything. I have heard professionally and personally a lot of questions around quality of life, and so I am seeking to respond to that by getting as much information out there as possible.
I see a couple more things.
Gained composure. So as I mentioned, I'm on the Town of Lee's PCB Advisory Committee, and I think the work that my co-members and I have been doing has been really productive, and I think we've kind of figured out a way to, there's sort of like a 2-track mission where there's some efforts that are, really looking at the question of, the UDF to begin with, and people who are more interested in and focused on efforts to stop it. And then there are other people who are more focused on the monitoring and kind of sticking with assuming it's moving forward, how to make this the best possible plan. So that's kind of how I think, and it's not, there's tensions in that, and it's complicated, But in terms of the monitoring work, I think that might be speaking, Becky, you might be interested in coming to one of those meetings because we have, figured out a lot of different tests to do third party. There's a lot of ongoing questions about things like, what's the deal with the aquifer? Is it contaminated? That was one of the questions I had. So, it's just, there's a lot of data and a lot of questions, and so I think the model that's happening there has been useful in that way. I just wanted to share.
Thanks, Julie. I appreciate that. Yeah, Charlie. And I just want to know we're at 7:45, which is when we scheduled the public Q&A.
Soon. I think everybody's going to stay overnight tonight anyway, because you're going to be here tomorrow. So there's no rush to get out of here. Earlier, before the discussion of the repository, Judy had asked a couple questions about CCC, and you were going to answer them.
Which ones?
I don't.
Like about the meeting and public comment and all the, yeah.
She had asked some I don't remember exactly what she asked, but you were going to respond to it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give this to you, and you're going to respond to that, and then you're going to give it back to me.
Okay.
I have something else to say.
Sure. What I was going to say is that Judy made a couple specific requests or comments on things that have changed, which is in previous meetings after the topic was done, members of the public were given an opportunity to comment. You suggested also that members of the public used to have a chance to do Q&A. And I was going to say that if you all want to do things that way, right, in this meeting or otherwise, we can do that. I'm not here to say that this discussion time is my decision. It's not. Okay, I don't think it should be. Okay.
And then
one other point is I'll just say if you want to. I did the survey this time, right, which was based on a piece of feedback we got from a CCC member to how to get more input. If you want to have a group come together and design this portion of the agenda and do with it however you want, I'm very happy to do that, right, and share it with EPA and say this is what the CCC wants to do. I'm happy to coordinate that as well.
And then the other thing she mentioned was, having a wall between us.
Yeah.
This is the first time it was here, so that was an experiment. It's still probably better than the Lee cafeteria, but it's still not. It's still not ideal.
Point taken. Yeah.
And what I wanted to say was, in comments with you, and in discussions with you, and in surveys with you, there's always some talk about confidentiality, and we have to protect people's. This is a government-run meeting. Everything that people say should be transparent. Confidentiality is what got us into the crap of having a dump in Lee without citizens' approval. And so I think, as much as I'm going to talk to you when I can, whatever I say, you're welcome to share with anybody, anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think whoever talks to you, you should be able to share that information back to us as well. You don't have to say, it was Charlie that said this or that, but you have to tell us what people are saying so that we know what's going on and who's helping to make the decisions. I'm going to ask EPA. Do you know who Carol Tucker is?
Okay.
Can we invite her to a meeting to meet us? For those people at home, Carol Tucker is the acting director for the Environmental Justice, Children's Health, and Environmental Review Division for Region 1. And we would like to meet her because we don't think that environmental justice happens very well at this site. We think that environmental justice was ignored, and as a result, we would like to have Carol Tucker come and meet with us. So hopefully that can happen sooner rather than later. And I'd actually like to have, it doesn't even have to be an official CCC meeting. Ask her to come and meet with us And I certainly will make my time to meet with her, and I'm sure other people will as well. Do I have anything else I want? I don't know.
Well, I wanted to wait a second.
No, I think I got everything so far, but I'm still here.
I just want to briefly touch on the kind of the comment towards me about confidentiality and what people say to me, sharing that. I'm very happy to share, because it was very clear to people when I was having those conversations earlier that we'd be doing exactly what you just suggested, to share out to people what I heard on a not for attribution basis. And so I have that presentation. We polled people on it, it got a 3 out of 5, right? If you want that in a future meeting, very happy to do it. You think the slides are enough, we can leave it, okay? Generally moving forward, right? I am happy to tell people, listen, like, I'd like to, if you're talking to me, general idea is I want to share out with the CCC what people come to me with on a not for attribution basis. I think that's helpful, right? If someone has something that's really sensitive and they say, Toby, like, just as a mediator, I want to have a confidential conversation with you. As a mediator, I oblige that. That's part of my job, that's part of my role, to have that resource to people if they want to have a confidential conversation. And that is not something that I kind of, given my profession and what I do, that I can change. But generally, to say, anything you actually wouldn't want shared in a not for attribution basis, I will do that, that's no problem, okay?
Again,
Yeah.
that confidentiality should not affect how this organization is run.
Fair point, right? And it's also it's different if EPA is involved as well, right? They're the government body on
And-
separate. Yeah,
And the other thing I
sometimes,
wanted to
yeah.
say before we go to public comment, Josh, when we first met Dean, he had black hair like this.
I already got the grays coming. They're coming.
You want to say something?
Yeah, just real
about
quick.
the hair?
About the hair, yeah, I want to talk about the hair. Actually, it's gone now, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I do want to get to public comment. Judy, is this like a quick thing? Yeah, I saw your thing is up.
It's
Yeah.
just a relay to you from our members and constituents and other people that I speak with up here. You know, you're dealing with for the most part, an underserved and overburdened community of blue-collar workers, and the way you write is exquisite, but people are having a hard time understanding your written presentations, and they're very long, and people in these communities don't have the time. That's why I have immense respect for the people behind us who have come to sit here and take this time out of their long day, and now we have a back-to-back meeting tomorrow. How did that happen? Was that because EPA had to come to town and it's a cost-saving measure? Anyways, people are having difficulty with how you relay news and concepts and moving forward in the written word. So, you know, I'm not real smart either. So, and I have trouble reading some of your stuff. So if you could like dumb it down a little bit, and I mean that in a good way, so that, especially me, so that I can read it more, you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
It's, you know,
Yeah.
it's what
Yeah.
attorneys do.
And I do. We want accessibility, right? So if you're not doing it, listen, we need to do better.
Working on you.
Yeah. You guys are molding me. I appreciate it. All right. So let's go to the public Q&A. I'd like to see, thank you. Can we see a show of hands of who in the public would like to make a comment, just so we have a sense of the numbers? So I see 1, 2, 3. Anyone else? I'm looking in the back there. Any other public comments? Okay. You have one, sir? 4? Okay. Anyone? If you're online, you can raise your hand and let us know that you want to make a public comment. Please do that now so we can see how many there are, and maybe we can take down the slide. Okay. Illustrious, let me know if anyone is online. So if you would like to make a public comment, could I request that you come and we'll do it at this microphone here. So I think we have you, ma'am. So come up and introduce yourself. There are 4 of you, so I think we don't need to put a strict time limit on this, but just be aware,
Is this working?
that let me make sure it works. Let's aim for no more than 5 minutes or so each. Okay. Is that okay?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Please introduce yourself.
My name's Caitlin Pierce. I live in Pittsfield, and my question really was, given the well-documented toxicity of PCBs and their proven links to developmental delays, cognitive impairments, and risks to pregnant women and children, why has there been no regular medical monitoring, testing, or care for these vulnerable groups in Pittsfield? Even more alarming, local doctors have no idea what a PCB is. They're completely unaware of how anybody's illnesses could possibly be related to PCBs. I can confirm this because I have asked probably 5 doctors in the past month myself. Not one can tell me how. Not a urologist, when bladder cancer is one of the #1 things killing men in Pittsfield, probably because of the PCBs. Sorry, that's just very upsetting. So that's probably one of the most alarming parts. So why are they completely unaware? And studies have shown that children exposed to PCBs, especially in utero, face significantly higher risks of neurological and developmental issues. How can the EPA justify not coordinating with healthcare agencies? I know you're doing surveys on cancer and certain things. Beyond that, how can you justify not coordinating with any healthcare or any health agencies to ensure routine testing, because there are blood tests that our doctors can't order, health surveillance, any kind of educational seminars, anything for our doctors, especially when there's independent studies that have shown that our homes have excessive levels of PCB vapors, which I'm being told, doesn't happen. So how can the EPA justify that, especially when there is peer-reviewed science? Thank you.
Would anyone from EPA like to respond?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So EPA's role under the consent decree is we have to administer and ensure GE's compliance with the consent decree and do other functions that are EPA's responsibility. That's our primary role. And like you said, PCBs are not good for you. That's why we're here. That's why our role is to reduce risk going forward and do these cleanups. For the questions you asked, anything related to PCB blood serum sampling, health concerns, epidemiology studies, tracking of diseases, that's really a Department of Public Health issue. And we have coordinated with Department of Public Health. They're coming tomorrow. They came out in Allendale School in 2006 and did a fairly substantial public health study at the request of the local Board of Health. That's also typically the way it works. It goes from local boards of health to the state Board of Health. They did offer blood sampling, PCB serum sampling, and that was done, and there's a full report on that. So they will be here tomorrow, 3 representatives from Mass DPH, and those questions are best directed to them.
Good, and you have one follow-up.
Yeah. From my understanding, though, the EPA is required under law to at least, they may not be the responsible party for actually administering tests, but they are the responsible party for making sure that those things are being cared for, and that would involve our community. So they may not necessarily, yes, they are required to oversee that the public is not being harmed by its environment. That may not involve directly administering blood tests, but that should involve making sure that the other agencies are in coordination and doing their job, which nobody is, because not a doctor has a clue. I don't expect the EPA to make the PCBs go away, but I expect the EPA to work with our other agencies. I don't expect the people of Pittsfield to be burdened with this. The amount of research I've had to do this month has been so, I mean, what I've discovered is disgusting. I mean, I was told that the GE facility that's currently being demolished was never actually inspected because, guess what, it was a little too dangerous, in part. That was what I was told. It sits feet from where my mother lives and where I grew up. I'm baffled that not a doctor has a clue. And I don't know how you can tell me, well, that's not really our job, but we're here because PCBs are bad. That was really not a good answer. So, thank you.
Caitlin, about how many emails are outstanding with questions that you've asked that have yet to be responded to?
Probably at least 3.
All right. You want to respond?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so a couple things on that. I've been working with the Pittsfield Board of Health since at least 2003. First it was Dr. Adamo, then Gina, now the current person. And as you know, and I know because the mayor told you this, the Pittsfield City Council Subcommittee has had meetings probably annually for the last 6 or 7 years that have talked about Allendale School and potential health effects. So it's not like there's been...
Not last year, though. He said not last year. So.
Yes, they are behind 1 year. They had a changeover in the council.
Well, that matters, so. Like, a year's a big difference when children are, potentially being contaminated. You can look at me like that, sir, but I'm
not looking.
frustrated.
I'm waiting for you to finish before I keep talking.
Okay.
These are the ones I keep getting in an email. Anyway, go ahead.
Let's
So we have been coordinating with them. We've been doing it for 20 years.
Poorly. Thank you.
Hey, folks, we're doing Q&A. Let's give EPA a chance to answer, okay?
So just quickly, Judy, to your question, this is one of the reasons we don't keep replying to emails because it's not productive at some point. When we give the best answer we can, and people certainly have a right to disagree with our answers, that's fine. But you get to a point where saying the same thing to a question slightly differently phrased is not productive. So,
Are you saying my emails?
no,
Or
you asked
Caitlin's
about
emails?
Caitlin's and why we haven't
Caitlin's.
replied. So yeah,
Okay.
that is why we decided, we answered the questions as best we can. You disagree with the answers, certainly you're right. But it's not productive to continue something that has no value.
Why don't you schedule a meeting? But if that's if there's some block going on, why don't you?
There's no block.
Okay, we're going to invite more public comments up, okay? Sir, go ahead.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Robert Alderton. I live in Lennox. Quick question, just to follow up to what you mentioned about GE. Did they set criteria to which they would want the group to abide, by which they would show up? And then one quick question to EPA, which is probably straightforward. I was looking, I haven't really been super involved in this process, but I was looking at your routine testing schedules, like I know that you do fish and things like that. I'm just wondering why local agricultural products, particularly dairy, was not on that list for routine testing, because it is a lipophilic substance and it would tend to accumulate, you would think. That would, to me, be one of the higher grade testing facilities for both dairy, milk, cheese products.
Yeah, so G did not give specific criteria in our conversation. Yeah.
When EPA did its human health risk assessment years ago, there was, I believe, some testing of dairy products. It was where our focus is in Rest of the River, where there was some farming and there was some assessment. I don't have all the details now. My understanding is there aren't, there's no commercial farms really within the area where the PCBs have settled at high concentrations. I can try and find more information on that if you'd like. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Sir, did you have a comment? I remember you raising your hand.
I have
You do as well.
I'm Kim Markhammer from Cornwall, Connecticut. I'm going to pick on Dean. I like picking on Dean. Air monitoring takes 21 days. How long does it take to test for soil?
Sorry, our other mic broke.
Typical turnaround time for soil would be maybe 14 days. I mean, it's a combination of the day you collect the sample, A lot of times you'll wait till the end of the week to send them off. You package them up, you send them off. They have to get to the lab. Sometimes that's 1 or 2 days. The PCBs have to be chemically extracted. So there's a 1 or 2 step, there's at least a 2-step process that the lab has to do that takes time. You have to review the results, you have to do the data validation. So it does, to get the original results, typically, you know, a normal turnaround time is 14 to 21 days. There sometimes is laboratories that are overloaded. This project, a lot of other projects, there's a lot of remediation going on right now with a lot of the infrastructure money that was put out there. So a lot of the labs are overwhelmed and backed up too. So that's part of the issue. So it's not just what is the most humanly quickest possible way to get a result. Normal turnaround times, probably 21 days for soil or sediment.
Any follow-up?
So when it comes down to demolishing a building that's contaminated with PCBs, or if there's digging going on a site that there's known PCBs, can you not put out an alert to the local area that PCBs will probably end up in the air?
We'll talk about the.
Oh, this one. It's on.
Can you hear me? Is it working?
Talk very loudly.
Okay, we'll be talking about the air monitoring more tomorrow. As far as an alert, like we said, these aren't levels of concern. We actually did try to give a presentation on building demolition in this CCC, and we're told not to. We were told there were more important topics. So that was one way we were going to get the word out. Other than that, we do try to put our presentations out in a timely manner in advance of work. Unfortunately, that didn't happen that time. Going forward, when we start the rest of the remediation, I think it's going to be pretty clear when GE starts excavating and dredging samples. I don't think there's going to be any mystery there. This building demo is one of the last parts of the remediation on the site. Like I said, we did try to get that word out. It didn't happen. The building demo itself actually is not even governed by the consent decree. The air monitoring is in place here because GE is consolidating some waste in building foundations, so that's why we have any authority there at all. So we do try to get the word out as soon as we can. And most stuff is pretty visible, quite frankly.
And there are risk management factors that are implemented on a site. So there can be the use of water trucks to keep dust particles down. There are certain air sampling methods that are continuous, like particle monitoring. That's what you requested they go take a look at, Valerie. That stuff's instant because it's just determining the amount of particles in the air and detecting. That's not the same as collecting samples for PCB analysis where there has to be the extraction and everything associated with that. So that's telling us it's too dusty. Well, the way to take care of dust is keeping it wet so it stays low to the ground. So that's where you may see spraying devices, water trucks, all those different types of things that we're going to discuss more tomorrow.
Thank you. So I see a comment there. There was one more person in the, I think there was someone else back there. You wanted to? Okay, go ahead. And then, ma'am, I see you. You'll be next, okay? Okay. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Michael Lucia. I'm a Lennox resident, and I've made some comments on the previous public statements. My first question is I wanted to make you aware that the governor has announced that there are 8 unsafe dams north of the cleanup site on the Housatonic River. And I hadn't seen that mentioned in any of the documentation. So I was wondering if there's any coordination with the EPA on that and how that might affect the cleanup. Particularly it's the Bell Air Dam, which is a $25 million cleanup just north of that.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. The dams that are associated with the consent decree are the Woods Pond, the Columbia Mill, the Willow Mill, the Glendale, and the Rising Pond dams. All of those are monitored in different capacities. 2 of them are GE owned, including Rising Pond and Woods Pond Dam. The Bel Air is not within that realm and is being managed by the city and state.
If it's north of cleanup site, then I don't know, whatever it takes to clean up these dams, or they're basically removing a dam, and I suppose a lot of water is going to come down. Is that going to shift sediment, and how will you know that you get it all?
The Bel Air Dam is well upstream of the confluence of the east and west branches, which is where the rest of the river comes. I was actually involved with another one. We weren't the lead, but it was a Telelectric Dam, which was much closer. And when DCR, whoever the entity was at the time, DER, Department of Environmental Restoration, that's part of the detailed analysis they go through when they determine how these dams are removed, how sediment is controlled, and how it doesn't just go downstream. So that is standard, whether it's the Housatonic River or not. That's part of the process. We don't get involved with that process. We rely on other state agencies to manage dam removal the proper way.
Were there PCBs at the
Telelectric there was, and they were removed prior to the dam removal, and that was addressed.
Okay, I see a few more comments from members of the public. I just want to note we are a little bit past 8 o'clock now, which was our designated end time. I don't want to not allow interested members of the public to speak. I would request that you please keep your comments concise, knowing that we're over time. Okay?
I just want to make one more comment.
Oh, you did have one more?
Sorry,
Okay.
I just want to make one more comment that I appreciate the revised transportation plan. The first plan, it seemed like it was written from somebody who was not familiar with this area. It had the trucks being driven through Lenox and Stockbridge roads that were not acceptable. So I appreciate that you guys are here. I think GE should be here. I think that is certainly something that you should bring up with them to meet with people in the public. But thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
So I have a couple.
Introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Gail Ceresia. I'm a citizen of Lee. I'm also on the PCB Advisory Committee for the Select Board. There's no mic here.
Yeah, you can come closer if you want. Yeah, you can come closer.
I feel a little weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did have a question for Dean about his bubble thing going on. Where the PCB were volatilizing and it peaked. And you were saying that there was a joint line between another company that picked up the peak. And I'm just trying to understand what you're actually saying. Are you saying that the PCBs just rise up and stay within a bubble? Or, can the wind blow it? Or
Right,
what
I'll
are
try
you
to
trying
explain
to
it better tomorrow. So this was, the area in question was a former GE facility north of East Street in Pittsfield. It's a very large parcel. Half of it, for lack of a better term, was transferred as part of the consent decree to the Pittsfield Economic Development Authority. So it's bounded essentially by 4 streets. There's a common property line now between PETA and GE. Mostly when you do your inner monitoring, you try and do it at the perimeter so that you're monitoring what goes outside into the occupied neighborhood. Those are the most important monitors. That's what's showing what's leaving the work area or the private property. There were several monitors by both GE and PETA, not on the same day, but both of them have monitors on the site perimeter, like on the streets or across the street or in the neighborhoods. This one happened to be within, say, the original GE parcel, dead center in the middle of that parcel. PETA set it up to monitor their work. It was very close to GE's work. It was like putting it right in the middle of demolition. I'm not saying there's a bubble, but what I'm saying is the much more important monitors are the ones on the perimeter that measure what could be leaving the work zone.
Okay.
That's the point I was trying to make. If I didn't make it very well, I'll try again tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow, I hope you can
And
explain
we have pictures
how the
and
winds and all
we
that
can
kind of
do
stuff.
that. So, yeah.
I'll also add, Gail, that to data sharing, going back there, there is a new bubble, or link, sorry, to, we started with bubble and here we are.
You're tired. It's like,
There's a new hyperlink that we added that takes to a new collection of air data for the PCB site on the main page under cleanup areas in focus. We are updating that as we receive the GE data that they're required to do monthly at this point. So currently all the data year to date up to through September is currently available on the website.
okay, and here's a really big concern that I have. If you take 14 days to test the soil for PCBs, are you going to wait for the are you going to tell the contractor to wait and see if that soil is contaminated with the level above what you say you're going to be putting into this dump site? I mean, I don't know how you can work like that. Shouldn't there be something on site testing as you go? I mean, you know, I watched Maximilian put a dam in, and they had to wait a couple of days before, you know, they could continue putting concrete. And that's just concrete. You know, we're talking about PCBs, and you're saying that the average is going to be 25 parts per million, but maybe we can go up to 50 parts per million. But then you waive it. You waive the criteria for 50 parts per million in the last upland disposal system. So I really don't know, you know, what you're saying. Is it really going to be 25 parts per million? And I also find it really offensive that you think that PCBs aren't a problem, Dean. You've said that so many times at so many meetings that you would just walk across the land, you know, without any, you know.
I didn't say PCBs are not a problem. I said they're not a problem at this level in the air above a contaminated soil plant. Yeah, I will say that. I have done that, and I've lived here my whole life. A lot closer to the site than almost everyone, because both my parents were born in the shadow of GE, so I know it quite well. I know PCBs quite well. I've been working in the river. I've been inspecting this for 30 years, so I'm just telling you the truth. I have no issue standing in the middle of the excavation or standing in that building demolition area without a respirator. I've done it. I don't have that issue. Doesn't mean you don't have an issue. That's fine. But if you're asking me my opinion, because I know the science and I know EPA's risk, the PCBs in air are not my concern. My concern is the PCBs in fish and direct contact in certain areas when it's very high level. But you're right, that is my opinion. It doesn't have to be anybody else's.
That is your opinion. I'm going to give you my opinion. I think it's crazy to put a bunch of hazardous waste on top of a clean aquifer.
Understood.
You know? And not only that, you have streams coming down the mountain, recharging the aquifer and the river. They're all clean right now. After you're done with your project, it's not going to be clean anymore. The PCBs are going to be all over the land. Every time you take a truck up through there, or a rail car, or whatever, there's going to be accidents. It just happens on construction sites. It's inevitable. And I think that you really have done our community a disservice. And I see some of the faces, or the stances that you gentlemen take, or
Yeah,
women.
let's not do personal
No, it affects me personally, because I just feel like you don't care.
So
You
let's,
just don't care.
we're no personal attacks is one of our ground
Let her
rules. This is
speak.
not about individuals.
Let her speak.
Go.
I'm from the community, and I'm trying to tell you that I think you should be concerned about our welfare. And I don't even understand how a consent decree could come together and, you know, and not even have any real information on quality assurance.
Or human health.
Thank you. Okay. All right. We'll have this the last comment. Okay. It's 8:19. So please, sir, keep it concise. Okay.
So, what is the cost?
Introduce yourself. Introduce yourself. Yeah.
Dave Carrington, Lee.
Thank you. Yeah.
What is the cost of disposing of a ton of PCB-laden material in a UDF And what is the cost of transporting it out by rail to a licensed landfill? That is dry, D-R-Y, dry.
So that's all been published and put out in our remedy selection, roughly. Maybe $50 in the UDF and over $300 off-site per ton.
So where is the off-site location?
There's several off-site locations that GE could lose, could select. They have to be licensed. They're not specified because they certainly could change over time. So there's several that they could propose and that they could use. Some of them that have been used in the past in New Bedford Harbor and other sites are, you know, I talk about EJ, some of them are in EJ neighborhoods. In Michigan, Belleville, Michigan's one. Rochelle, Indiana's another. Those are the two that are most recently used. Model City in New York, they've been closed for a long time, but they used to take high-level PCB waste. There's some in Utah, Idaho, Deer Park, Texas. 3 of them in Texas, maybe 2 in Utah, and maybe 1 in California. So those are some of the ones that can be chosen.
So
There's one in ML, Alabama, too.
So you would use the least expensive, which would be the closest, and you're saying?
Not necessarily, because they all know the price and they all know the game. And the disposal facilities, if they know they're closer to you, they're gonna put the price $1 less than somebody farther away. They're not stupid.
So the closest, the transportation cost of the closest one would be a lot
But
less.
then they bump up the disposal cost because they know they're the only game in town.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we've reached the end of the public question and answer. Final item on our agenda today. I plan to follow up with you all with another opportunity to suggest topics. I also want to, in that email, invite anyone who's interested in a more active role in setting the agenda, right? To feel free to connect, and you know we can do that. Okay? I think there's been another request here, a suggestion that folks might be interested in coming together to offer suggestions around the GE website, data collection. So I'm happy to send out an email to see who might be interested in connecting about that and connect you folks and see where that goes. If there's something that group wants to come back to a larger group with a proposal or ideas at the next meeting, or do anything they want in the interim. Okay. Those are my action items. I don't know if EPA, if there's anything that you all are taking from action items. You know we have the meeting tomorrow night, right? So maybe we'll see many of you there. Jack, you have a piece?
Is the meeting tomorrow night, is the meeting also?
That will be in person, but it will be televised by CTSB. We won't have a way to ask questions at that meeting, hybrid was.
Thank you all.
Okay, we'll tell you what,
Meeting adjourned.
I always